Good morning, everyone. This is Jagdish, Assistant Professor of EC Department, SNS College of Technology, Coimbatore. And here in our video lecture series, that is Artificial Intelligence and Machine Learning video lecture series, we are going to discuss about the topic classification. So the classification is the one type of machine learning algorithm. There are two broad classification. One method is classification, and another is a regression. So now, in the previous episodes, we already discussed about the regression and the types of the regression. So today we are going to discuss about the classification in this episode. So come, let's dive into the topic. So, actually, what is classification in supervised machine learning algorithm? That is, classification is the task of classifying things. As name suggests that's nothing but of classifying the things into subcategories. Classification is a part of supervised machine learning in which we put labeled data for training. So here, if we studying the classification or discussing the classification, we must recall the concept regression also, because this is all regression also one of the type of supervised machine learning algorithm. So what is actually a regression? Regression algorithm are used to predict a continuous numerical output. For example, a regression algorithm could be used to predict the price of house based on its size, location, and other features, etc. So what is how this classification is differ from the regression? That means classification algorithm are used to predict the categorical output. For example, a classification algorithm could be used to predict whether the email is a spam or not, like this. So that means a classification. It is whether there are only two probabilities. One is it should be a spam or it will not be, right? So like this, it will categorize. So this is called a classification. That's the difference between classification and the regression. So classification is the process of categorizing data or objects into predefined classes or categories based on their features or attributes. Machine learning classification is a type of supervised learning technique where an algorithm is trained on a labeled data set to predict the class or category of new unseen data. So the main objective of classification machine learning is to build a model that can accurately assign a label or category to a new observation based on its features. For example, a classification model might be trained on data set of images labeled as either dogs or cats and then used to predict the class of new unseen images of dogs or cats based on their features such as color, texture, and shape. So classification types. So there are two main classification types in machine learning. There are binary classification, another one is a multi-class classification. So what is binary classification? In binary classification, the goal is to classify the input into a one of two classes or categories. Example, on the basis of given health condition of a person, we have to determine whether the person has a certain disease or not. And next to the binary classification, we have another type, is a multi-class classification. In multi-class classification, the goal is to classify the input into one of several classes or categories. For example, on the basis of data about the different species of the flow to determine which species of observation belongs to. So this is actually a multi-class classification. So let us take the puzzle. It's a classroom activity. Look at the image and find out the appropriate answer for the each question. So we have four questions are there with the combination of images and some missing letters. You find out the answer from this image. So this is the some graphical representation between the binary classification and the multi-class classification. So this is the difference. And other categories of classification involves multi-label classification. In multi-label classification, the goal is to predict which of several labels a new data point belongs to. This is different from multi-class notification classification, where each data point can only belong to one class. For example, a multi-label classification algorithm could be used to classify images of animals as belonging to one or more of the categories like cat, dog, bird, or fish. And next one is a imbalanced classification. In imbalanced classification, the goal is to predict whether a new data point belongs to a minority class, even though there are many more examples of majority class. For example, a medical diagnosis algorithm could be used to predict whether a patient has a rare disease, even though there are many more patients with common disease. So let us take the assessment. So the assessment question is differentiate regression and classification of supervised machine learning algorithm with the real world examples. Thank you.